All right. Welcome to the monthly live Q&A call for the Accelerator. And we will just go ahead and get started. So let me just start by introducing you to my co-host. Hi, Mom. How are you?
Hi. Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. So what have you been up to?
Oh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I just wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed joining you for your keynote presentation at the University of Tennessee. You did such a great job of interacting with the students, and they were engaged and they were attentive. And of course, they were very excited to meet you in person. So I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much for inviting me to come.
You're very welcome. Yeah, that's actually the first time that you have had an opportunity to participate in one of my keynotes. I've been mostly speaking virtually, actually, since I started this whole thing. So, yeah, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. So just for everybody, the University of Tennessee Women in Engineering program leader, Jolanda, who is also our new member for this month, Jolanda invited me to speak to a group of students. So I think we had, I don't know, about 15 to 20, somewhere around in there, joined us, and I gave my 3 Pillars to Your Dream Career in STEM keynote. It's very similar to the Leadership Success Framework that's actually inside the membership. So it's really based on that, a little bit geared towards a younger audience, younger in their career trajectory, since these are students. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. So thank you for being there. And Jolanda just said wonderful things about you, Mom. She was like, your mom is just so nice.
Oh, she's very
I was like,
sweet
yeah, she's like,
too.
she gave me a hug. And so yeah, so that was I think a nice experience for them too, for Jolanda and for the students to get to meet you. So
Well, I did have a good time. I had a great time.
so thank you for that. Okay, well, I'll take you off screen because I know that's your preference. And so just to let everyone know who's on the call, so you can ask your questions at any time by just raising your hand, and I can see it. I have you all up on a dashboard at the top of my screen, or you can put your question in the chat, and then my mom will raise her hand and she will ask the question on your behalf. So you've got a couple of different ways to do that. And then if you want to come on screen, I'm happy to do that, but you know, nobody has to come on screen who doesn't want to. We are recording this. In fact, I need to double check. Yes, we are recording this. And as you know, we post the replays inside the membership in the Q&A tab. So let's just get started then. Overview of the new membership activities. So a couple of the topics that I put into the forum, I asked you about success rituals. So, you know, when I think of rituals, I think of a series of steps of activities that you do on a regular basis, really to because it has some meaning for you. And so I've personally been working, I've been working with my own coach, and I've been working on 2 success rituals, a personal success ritual, which is something that I do in the morning, and I posted that inside of the chat. It's really about waking up, doing a little bit of meditation, exercise, and then getting my nutrition off to a good start with a protein smoothie. And then I'm also working on a business success ritual, and I'm still kind of smoothing that out. But the main parts of it are, one, really doing some outreach to potential clients. So building my network and trying to reach out to potential clients. And then the other piece of my business is really around creating content both for marketing, so things I put on LinkedIn, but also creating content to deliver to clients, like what I create for you to put in the membership. And also I have lots of private clients that require their own content. So I try every day to spend, you know, an hour and a half to 2 hours doing those 2 things to ensure that my business also has success. So personal success around mindset, health, nutrition, and then business success for me is around outreach and servicing clients and marketing. And so I invite you to think about a personal success ritual that you might want to have, I would maintain is probably going to be very similar in just in terms of focused on health and wellness. And then what it is for you, for your career and your business, or your projects, or whatever type of career that you have, what are some things you can do consistently that will ensure that you set yourself up for success. The other thing that we talked about in the forum was ChatGPT. So it's all the rage, and I typically avoid trying to do things that are at the top of what's called the hype cycle. So there's actually a consulting firm called Gartner that measures all of these different trends that go on in the world. And so from I've always looked at their technology trends, and I have to put OpenAI and these sorts of regenerative artificial intelligence at the top of the hype cycle. And certainly when I was head of innovation for a big company, I always had the CEO always wanted to do something at the top of the hype cycle. And I would always say, no, this is the absolute worst time, because the top of the hype cycle is what it says. So everybody's talking about it, but it's just hype. It's just like everybody just is excited about it, but it has yet to really bear fruit, and sort of the benefits that everybody thinks is going to happen with this technology haven't necessarily come to fruition yet. And so, while I would not invest myself or suggest that a company invest heavily in something like ChatGPT right now, I'm happy to use the free platform and just play with it, which is what I've been doing. And so I've actually used it quite a bit to help me generate content for that business success ritual that I was just telling you about. So, I have tons of my own thoughts about, trainings and modules and things like that, but I've been supplementing it with content from ChatGPT, just sort of typing in, I think an example of one I did recently that I posted on LinkedIn was, what are the top concerns that people have when layoffs are announced? And so I just typed that into ChatGPT, and it listed like 10 things. And I was like, oh, well, since these are the concerns that most people have, it makes sense that leaders think in advance about how to answer those questions and those concerns so that they can be prepared. And so I converted that into a LinkedIn post that says, okay, if you're going to have to announce layoffs, these are the things that you need to be prepared to discuss with your staff, because they will have these questions. So that's just the way that I've been using it. A couple people in the chat mentioned on the forum mentioned that they were also using it. I think that Andrea said she kind of uses it to help with the blank page. So if she has to write a recommendation or something for somebody, she might just use ChatGPT to get her started. And then she can go from there. And I think that's another great way to use it. So if it's something that you're playing with, would love to hear what you're doing there. In terms of content inside of the accelerator, so I did post the Infinite Network training module, and along with that video training comes, of course, the workbook, and then I would say 7 or 8 additional quick wins, cheat sheets, affirmations that support the Infinite Network training program. So a lot of content there, and invite you to take a look at that whenever you get a chance. Just a reminder, that's basically the last module inside the personal leadership roadmap. So that was hopefully my response to some feedback that many of you had about, okay, where do I start? How long does it take? Those sorts of questions. So rather than just give you a menu only give you a menu of self-service modules that you can take in any sequence that you want, on any topic that you want, that is very much still available to you. And that's the way I personally prefer to consume training content. But I know that there are others who say, I really want like a curriculum. I really want like a syllabus. And so the personal leadership roadmap, if you click on that inside the training module, it actually gives you a sequence of modules to take one after the other. And once you go through that whole roadmap, you will have what I consider to be the foundational pieces of my leadership success framework in more detail. You have worked through all of those. It should put you light years ahead of probably where you were and of your peers in terms of mastering what I consider to be these foundational pieces of proving your performance through the technical influencer module about presenting your work to a wide range of audiences. Then nurturing your network, which is what the Infinite Network module is about. And then mastering your mindset, which is what the Unlocking the Authentic Leader module is about. And so with those three things, you have content that goes with each of those three things. And then I threw in the Achievement Advantage because that's about goal setting. And so I would envision that you would have a goal for each of those other modules. And so that just gives you a framework to set goals. So that's in there now. And I look forward to getting your feedback on how that goes. So now I'm going to go to the questions. As always, if anybody wants to jump in and ask questions live, I always give first preference to live questions. If you don't have questions live and you just want to listen in, that's fine. And I've got a list of questions here that I got from you in advance. So I will just continue. I will just start by working through those. Okay. Do you have any tips on how to assert yourself when you're the only woman in the room? Yes. So there's a couple of things that I recommend. First of all is to be prepared for the meeting that you are attending. If you can get an agenda in advance and really understand what the topics are going to be, that will help you to feel more confident about, what the meeting is about and how you can contribute. So the first is to be prepared. Of course, if you are presenting in the meeting, then make sure that you have gone through the technical influencer training and skimmed through that and really prepared your materials, whether they be a slide deck or even just talking points. So step one is to be prepared. Step two is to be prepared to contribute. So I am of the school that you get invited to meetings because you need to contribute. Now, I should say there are many meetings that are just informational. So somebody needs to transmit information to people, and there's not an expectation of there being a lot of engagement. And I prefer that those meetings be fewer and farther between, but that's not necessarily the case in all organizations. But even still, I really suggest that you be prepared to contribute. And so this answer is actually for anyone. This is not just for women. There are a couple of questions that I like to have just sort of in my back pocket that are always relevant. Just things like, okay, what are going to be the metrics that we're going to use to measure the success of whatever topic it is we're talking about? What are the benchmarks associated with whatever the topic is that's being discussed? Those are kind of two questions that I think you can always throw out in any meeting. And so I really recommend that you go into into any discussion, any meeting with the idea of, I really should contribute something, because that is, particularly as you go higher and higher up in an organization, you will get to a point where that's the only reason that you get invited, is because they want your specific input, your specific feedback on a given topic. And so to the extent that you start to show whatever stage you're in, starting now, that you have contributions, you can, you will continue to be invited to these meetings. The other thing I will say, the one thing that I do think is women specific, and there's data out there about women tend to get interrupted more frequently than men. And so the one specific thing about women that I would say is about managing interruptions. And so I will tell you, I have maybe a controversial take on this particular topic. So if you read things like the leanin.org and other women's organizations, they will give you what I call sort of verbal jujitsu that you can use to sort of say, you know, if somebody interrupts you or even takes your idea, you can say, oh, well, you know, I'm so glad you agree with me, or you know, thank you for restating my points or whatever. And you can do that if you want to. I don't actually think it works. Frankly, I think that there's kind of two reasons for that. One, most meetings in these free-form meetings, I don't know that there's a lot of recognition by most of the people in the room who's contributing what idea. It's kind of more like stuff's just getting thrown into the pot and getting rehashed and mixed around. And so while of course you know very well the words that came out of your mouth and you had a lot of emotional attachment to them, I don't know that facilitators and other people in the room are necessarily saying, oh, the person who put that comment out there is her, and the person who put that comment out there is him, and etc. So that's one thing, just to kind of more about meeting dynamics. And then the second thing is, honestly, I think people who are sort of chronic interrupters, like, I hate to say it, but they don't learn. Like that's not gonna stop that bad behavior, but it is gonna draw attention to yourself. And then, you know, it could have the leader of the meeting kind of thinking, oh, well, this person's more concerned about getting credit for their idea than, you know, helping to solve the problem. So, you know, people do that. People do recommend that. I don't know that it really works. And I do think there could be potential negative consequences to doing that and how it's perceived. So, okay, so what do you do instead? What I think you should do is just continue to put ideas into the pot. So rather than throw something out there, get interrupted, and then pull back because you're pissed off, I would rather to see you just sort of brush it off and either throw that same idea back out there or throw out a new idea, or, you know, throw out your questions about benchmarking or whatever. But I kind of think that ideas are more, or contributions, there's more like a volume effect. So if you throw one idea out there and it doesn't get picked up, that's okay, one thing. But if you throw, you know, 10 ideas out there and 2 get picked up, I think that you will be seen as having been a successful contributor to the meeting. So that's really my take on managing interruptions. And so that's where the preparation comes into play. Prepare for read the agenda, prepare so you can have a list. So you have your stock questions, the ones that I mentioned earlier, and then you have your questions based, or your feedback, your comments based on the preparation you did. And then you go in with an opportunity to throw out an array of different ideas and topics, etc., that I think will basically show you as being a strong contributor to the meeting, which is, I think, an outcome that you should be looking for. Is not only did they take my idea and run with it, but did I have a strong contribution to the discussion? And so being able to handle, being prepared and then being able to sort of manage interruptions is a good, I think, a good way to manage that. Okay, next questions. How do you know if an original idea for a new product or service is actually worth pursuing? So this is a great question. So I've been doing a lot of talking with the University of Tennessee. So I'm the entrepreneur in residence there. So I've been doing a lot of student presentations to students about the overall innovation process at a high level. And I have some office hours for students who are interested in pursuing entrepreneurial ventures. And so this question comes up a lot. And the answer is really that the main way to know if you have a good idea is to try to test it in the market, is to get real market feedback about this idea. And so there are a couple of ways you can do that. You know, you can go and survey people in your potential target market. You can do some research, Google research, to see, if people are talking about the problem that you're solving, and maybe there's other, there are other products out there that try to solve it, but you can get some ideas about, okay, how big is this problem, and do people agree that this is a problem, and then you can you can think about your solution. If you can do any type of prototyping and kind of get it into the hands of potential users, that's a great way to test your idea. Not good ways to test your idea are to talk to friends and family about it, because they're mostly going to tell you that it's a good idea, and they're probably not your target audience, and so their feedback isn't really what you're looking for. You're looking for people that you actually want to try to sell this to get some initial feedback from them. So that's really the way to kind of know if it's good or not, is to actually get some market feedback. Okay, I have been invited to speak about my business at a local networking event. What advice do you have for preparing my presentation? I have about 30 minutes. Okay, great. So first of all, congratulations on being invited to talk about your business. Yeah, so I think in a 30-minute presentation, you can do a couple of things. So you want to let people get to know you personally a little bit. And then they want to know, and then you want to tell them a little bit about why you are knowledgeable enough to have this business that you have. And then you want to tell them a little bit about your services or products. And then you want to leave them with a way to follow up with you. So the presentation could be something like just a short 5-minute introduction to you and maybe your personal backstory, like this is where I'm from, and this is, I grew up here. And then maybe just a little transition point about why you started this business. So maybe there was a problem that you wanted to solve, or maybe you have a family legacy of entrepreneurs or something like that, but just a little bit about your why. And then I would do a little bit of basically almost like content marketing. So a little bit of a how-to related to your specific topic. So giving away free tips, essentially, on whatever your topic is that's related to your service, but some free tips that lets people know that you're an expert and that you're not only there to sell to them. And then give them to say, okay, and here's my business. These are the products and services I offer. And then what I like to do, if any of you have seen me speak, is I always like to have my last slide is just sort of a thank you, and then like a QR code to one of my social accounts. And in my case, I'm only on LinkedIn, so it's easy for me, but it just gives people a way to connect with me. And I leave that up during Q&A, and that gives people time to connect with me. And so typically for me, when I give some sort of presentation like that, I would say 15 to 25% of the people in the room will have connected with me on my social account before I leave, by the time I leave. And so that is, that's really kind of, I think, a general template. And then of course you can scale it. So in my case, I typically give 45-minute talks. And that's exactly what my keynotes are. My keynotes are, hey, here's a little bit about me. This is my backstory. I'm going to give you the 3 pillars of a successful career in STEM, or I always do everything in 3s. It's just a communication thing, but the 3 keys to successful innovation, or whatever. I teach something so people understand that I'm an expert. And then I say, okay, by the way, I have an online community coaching training community platform, and I do private one-on-one coaching. And then I walk out with, and then I leave with the social thing. I think there's another, if you have something that's called a lead magnet, which is just a very simple downloadable cheat sheet of some sort. So everybody who's in this a couple of minor exceptions, found me through my lead magnet. So I give away a leadership blueprint. I give away a few other just sort of worksheets that I've given away over the years. And so that requires people to give an email, and then they get a free piece of content or something that's value add. So if you have a lead magnet, you can include that, but otherwise, very simple introduction to you as a person, brief summary of why you're in the business that you're in, a little bit of training, tips, etc., that demonstrates your expertise, a brief summary of your services, and a walk away with how to contact you on your social accounts or email or your phone or whatever, however it is you prefer people to contact you. So that is the template for really any of these kind of networking type events, whether they be people pay you for them or you're doing it for free, whether you have 30 minutes or 3 hours, template's kind of the same. And you just sort of add time to fill in the time if you need to. So that's my suggestion there. I want to get some input on my project progress from one of my high-level stakeholders, but I don't have a lot of data yet. Can you suggest how to approach them? Sure. And so I'll talk a little bit more, give you a little bit more context for this, because I know I had a chance to talk through this with someone during a coaching session. So the hesitancy that this person had was really just feeling like, I don't have a nice PowerPoint deck, or I don't have, almost enough data for like a short publication or something like that. And so they were feeling hesitant to reach out to a pretty senior level person and just sort of give them a quick update and get some input from them, because they felt like, is it just a waste of their time if I do that? And so what I encouraged him to do was to really, first of all, I encouraged him to reach out at whatever level of completion that he had at the moment, because it sounded like he really did need their input, and their input had some direction setting included in it, which meant that if he didn't get this input, he could, be off continuing to run experiments in the wrong thing. So first of all, let's recognize I actually need to talk with this person. So then how do we set up this conversation so that I feel confident talking with them, I get the information I need, but I don't waste their time? And what I suggested that he do was, first of all, frame the conversation very specifically. So just say, hi, I'd like to meet with you for, 30 minutes or whatever to get some direction on the project. I am currently 30% into it, or 50% or whatever into it, and I'd like to get some input. So when you frame it that way, it's very clear, okay, this person doesn't have everything done. And, it sets the expectations, I think, quite clearly. And then the other thing I would say is, most leaders, and I'll speak for myself, but, the peers that I've worked with have all felt the same, would much rather you come with questions early than to not hear from you for 3, 6 weeks, months, whatever, and then find a nice package with a bow around it that is garbage, right? Because you didn't have the right input. So we're less concerned about the packaging and more interested in getting a status update and helping you to achieve the desired outcome that we have than we are about seeing things with a nice bow around them. So that's the other, I think, mindset shift that I was able to help him with, which is, yes, typically we like to have the PowerPoints, we like to even have the written publications or whatever. That's sort of the way our training has programmed us to want to do things. And there is absolutely a time and a place for that. But when you're talking about working on projects and you have high level leaders that you need to get input from, we would much rather just get a status update than than have you wait. And if you frame the conversation as such, then the expectations are clear. And I was just, as I was telling you about this, I was thinking about a time that this actually happened to me, and it was actually really, it was a big mindset shift for me. So I was in the same boat. I was working on a really big project, and just out of the blue, my new boss asked for a status update with his peer. So new boss and peer, they asked for a status update on this really big project. And it was pretty short. It was a pretty short turnaround. So all I had a chance to do was to, I mean, I'm looking right here because my big whiteboard, I have what, a 3 foot by 6 foot whiteboard or something, but my big whiteboard, all I really had a chance to do by the time they'd called me and then we were scheduling this meeting was to go on my whiteboard and kind of map out, each of the different phases of the project, where we were, what the challenges I was having or not, and status and all of that. So that's all I had a chance to do. And so I took a picture of that and I put it up on the screen, and I was like, I apologize profusely. I was like, I'm very sorry that this is in the current form that it's in, but this is the status, and let me walk you through it. And I did it. And then at the end, they both said, you need to do more of this. We are so sick of looking at PowerPoint presentations. Don't waste your time on that. We just need to know the critical information. You don't need to make it look pretty. And from that point on, I really just started doing a lot of that kind of thing. I mean, obviously, there's a time and a place still, and I still, do a lot of very polished types of presentations. And there's absolutely a time and a place for that. But, sometimes you don't have the time, and you'd be surprised at how, leaders just really want the information. They care more about, I guess, function than they do form. And I actually started using that when so by the time, I had incorporated it so much in my way of working that, by the time this was at Alcoa originally, by the time I had gone to Operum, that was just the way I did everything. Particularly if I was working with my own staff, I would just say, okay, look, let's stand together at this whiteboard. We're going to map it all out and then take a picture of it and go. Like nobody needs to convert that into something fancy. So I would just add that piece to the answer that I had really positive feedback when I gave something very, very rough, much rougher than I'm sure this person who was asking me about it would ever think of. So it was way less than a completely finished publication. It was just handwritten, scribble on a whiteboard. And I got very, very positive feedback from that. So I think, again, leaders really care much more about function than they do the form. And so giving them clear status update and a clear place to make a decision to help you is much more important than waiting until you have everything all tidy. Let's see. So where am I? How do you overcome feelings of imposter syndrome? This comes up, this really, really comes up so often. And I've answered it a couple of times. And of course, I know not everybody has heard my answer, so I'm happy to keep answering it. I will say, there is a training in our training library where I go over it. But I'll just give you the Cliff Notes version here. The short version is a couple of things. So first of all, I think it's really important to understand what imposter syndrome really means to you. So, and the way I like to think of it is, if you are feeling nervous, if you're feeling like you're sitting in a room with people that you somehow believe know more than you, have more experience than you, and you are feeling nervous about that, I personally think you are in the right room. That means that, people have seen something in you and think that you have something to contribute, even if you're among people that are more experienced, or somehow have, more credentials or whatever. So if you're nervous about that, I personally wouldn't consider that imposter syndrome. I would just consider that growth zone, if you will, and say, like, take a couple deep breaths, prepare for the meeting, like I told you in the previous question, and go for it, and get, just do those things, just do what you need to do to kind of get through those feelings. And also know that if you're doing things right, you will continually be in those situations, right? That's how you know you're growing. You're continually in situations where you say, oh, like, these are new people. They seem pretty together. They seem really smart, and they're doing really cool things. And I don't quite know how I fit in. I don't quite think I'm there yet, but it's exciting to be among them. So that's sort of the first thing. Now, if on the other hand, you are being invited to those sorts of discussions, invited to meetings, invited to try new things, and you continually don't do them, you hold yourself back because you are just so concerned that you will make a fool out of yourself, or you'll be found out that you are not nearly as smart as as people think you are. If you are holding yourself back because of your feelings of imposter syndrome, and you can't find your way to just, putting on extra deodorant and going, because you're sweating so much or whatever, if you can't find your way, then you need to address it. And so I've got stuff in my training so that I talk about the thing that has really helped me, because I was in that mode of holding myself back, particularly when I was at MIT in the executive MBA program. I was really, really suffering from imposter syndrome and holding myself back from contributing, from participating, from really the full experience. And what really helped me was to just get very in tune with my own accomplishments, to actually write them down, to review them almost like on affirmation-like frequency, until it really just clicked with me. Oh, I do belong here. I have this laundry list of accomplishments. Also, frankly thinking, MIT picked me. So it's not like they decided they're going to pick all these other really smart people and then just throw me in because I don't know what they needed, somebody with a letter, whose name started with A, or who knows. But, if you really take a step back and you think, okay, really smart people with a very rigorous process picked me, they must know something. So between kind of really stepping outside of myself and thinking about that, and then also more getting in tune with myself and realizing, okay, actually, I have done a lot of really amazing things. That helped me. So I strongly encourage you start there with that kind of approach. And, I've got a worksheet you can work through. Then there's some affirmations and things like that as well. And then if you do that and you still are really paralyzed by your feelings of inadequacy, then I suggest you consider finding a mental health professional. It may be a situation that, that is beyond just sort of the stuff that's in the self-help canon, right? Which is what I do. The self-help type stuff. And maybe there's something there that you need to address. And I always encourage people to take a very serious approach towards our mental health. So I've been seeing a therapist, 2.5 years now, I think. She really helped me when I was struggling with COVID. I was really struggling with if I wanted to make the transition from corporate to coaching. And now she's kind of more of a coach now, because I still see her once a week and we talk through things. But I'm a huge advocate of getting a therapist if that's something that you have even an inkling of thinking that you might want to do. So that's on kind of the other end of the imposter syndrome. So again, let me just if you're just nervous, just do whatever else you would do for something that you're nervous about, and just move forward and actually pat yourself on the back for growing. If you're kind of somewhere in between, finding that you're holding yourself back from opportunities because of your feelings of inadequacy, then I would suggest you take a look at my training. And the methodology that worked for me was really owning my own accomplishments through really writing them down, reviewing them, accepting them as, yes, I actually did these things. It wasn't, it wasn't a fairy. It wasn't a team. It wasn't something magical thing. It was me, Angelique, that actually did all these things. And then if that doesn't work, consider seeking a mental health professional to help you sort through whatever may be there that's blocking you. Okay. The next question, what is about partnerships? And so the question is, I am working on a big project and I'm interested in maybe getting some partners to help me. How can I think through how to find potential partners? And so this question just came up a couple of weeks ago with one of my clients. So I'm bringing it to you here because it will allow me to talk a little bit more about one of the pieces of content that I actually put inside the membership. So let me see if I can just find it and share my screen. Let's see here. Just a second. Let's see, to see cheat sheets. So let me click on cheat sheets. Here it is. Okay. So let me share my screen real quick. And here it is. Okay. So the question is about partnerships and how to think through finding partners. And I want to point you to the SIPOC model. So the SIPOC model is just a way to think high level about your project or business or process. And SIPOC stands for suppliers, inputs, processes, outputs, and customers. Okay. And so this is in the sort of Lean Six Sigma continuous improvement methodologies. And so I learned this through Alcoa. Alcoa had their own version of the Toyota production system. So I used this a ton when I was actually doing process improvement. And what it does is it allows you to visualize your entire process and think through each of the steps. And it also it's a good coordinating device. And by that, I mean, you get all of the people that are working on the project or the process to kind of have one shared view of the truth. So it is great. It is absolutely great for that. And I highly recommend that people use it for that. But it's so much more than that. And so a way to use it to think about partners is to just, if you've mapped out your business or your process, then you can say, okay, are there suppliers that I could potentially partner with that could help improve this, initiative? Are there customers? So I'm looking at 1 and 5. Are there customers that I could partner with? And then, when you look for inputs, say, okay, is there a source of inputs that I haven't thought of before that maybe could be a partner? Outputs, could I partner with, the people that are utilizing outputs or who could be interested in outputs? And so that, that is just a way that it goes from being a tool to visualize everything to a potential brainstorming tool. And then I was thinking a little bit more about this too. And I thought, okay, so what about if we use the same model? We just talked about the partners lens, but what if we talked about the networking lens, right? We just did Infinite Network. So you could think, do I know my peers in each of these different areas? So do I know the person who's the equivalent to my role in the people that are suppliers in the organizations that supply us our main inputs? Do I know the peers that are the customers? So if you don't, then that gives you a starting point for building your own professional network. Then if you think of maybe about talent development, you can say, okay, So do our suppliers offer any trainings that myself or my staff could take that could help us become more informed consumers of the inputs that they give us? Similarly, do our customers offer any kind of training that could make us, a better supplier to them? The other thing you can think of is, okay, do my suppliers have actual rock stars in their organizations that we might want to ethically steal so that we can be better at, at creating our process and creating our service, et cetera. Same with customers. So you can think about it from that standpoint as well. Then you could take a look at this model through like a risk lens. And so you say, oh, we only have one supplier for this really important input. That might be an area where you want to address. Or you say, oh, we only have one customer for, our primary output. Maybe that's an area where you want to take a look at things from a risk standpoint. And then, the other thing too, just sort of another classic way it's used is around efficiency. And so you can look at each of these different components, primarily inputs and outputs, and say, all right, well, are there a way to improve and processes, is there a way to improve the process in order to make things more efficient? Can we use fewer inputs? Can we use a different input that's cheaper, et cetera? So I just wanted to share that with you as I answered this question. I brought this question from a private client here because it gives me an opportunity to showcase the power of this particular cheat sheet that I put in there for you. So you've got, of course, again, the classic, let's just define our business or our process and make sure that everyone that's involved is on the same page. And then you can look at it through a partnership lens. You can look at it through a talent management lens. You can look at it through a risk lens. You can look at it through an efficiency lens, and then just use it to brainstorm potential actions. So I think that's a very useful exercise to go through. Okay, so we are coming in on the home stretch here. Let me just on my sheet. Okay, so what is coming up in the accelerator? So I don't know actually. So let's see. So I don't have plans to put another large piece of training in the accelerator for a couple of weeks. So we finished the roadmap. I do have a short conclusion that I want to add to the roadmap, but I really want you to focus on completing the roadmap. Again, my estimation is that it's like an 8 to 12 week exercise. If you really go through it, maybe spending an hour a week or so. I know that you all probably won't do that. You all are super busy, so it'll probably take longer, and that's fine. But what I will be doing, like in our weekly emails, is I'll be sort of just pointing you to some of the different pieces of content that are in there. And what I'm actually focused on myself is more recruitment. I would like more members. So rather than create a lot more content right now, I am focusing on recruiting and hopefully getting more members. I'd like to see a little bit more activity in the forums. And then of course, I'd love to have more revenue from the membership. So that's what I will be focusing on. We will continue to have our monthly live Q&A calls. We'll continue to have our weekly forum discussion. And I will, continue here and there to put new content in as I find things, or as you all give me feedback on topics that you are interested in. But as it stands right now, I don't have a plan for the next month or so for a new large training module. So with that, let's see, I forgot to check to see when our next meeting is. So let me just double check that here. We'll of course post it, but our next meeting, let's see, will be on Wednesday, April 19th. So we will see you all then. Okay, bye.